SJ, Stone Gold, Gary Fife, Jaho Jeff Kados.
Darren, Delaune, Jeff Kados.
Mvskoke Radio, Mabu Hedgerow. Welcome to our program this week. Beautiful, sunny Oatmogi. It's like the last shot of summer, isn't it?
I think so. I think he wants to get in and stretch it for as long as possible. So I think that's what it's doing right now.
Yeah.
And I think what's coming along with this summer for me, anyways, is I think I'm coming down with the summer cold.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I'm like, goodness. I'm like, I thought this was going to be done with too. And but nope.
Such fun. I get sweaty and then go into air conditioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God. Well, we are looking at this month being Suicide Prevention Month, and we have a guest later on that you'll be speaking with that is a survivor of one of those attempts. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But this morning we were scheduled to be speaking with James Nichols of the Emergency Management Systems, our rescue people. But kind of bad for us and good for him is FEMA decided they didn't need all the extra teams coming down into the area, and so they and Light Horse were pretty much canceled.
Yeah, they were told to stand down. I spoke with Light Horse Deputy Chief Daniel Wind earlier this morning, and he was. I was asking him to see if we could speak to any of his staff or any of the officers that might have went there to help with the relief efforts, and he told me that they were all ready to go. I mean, they said like within a couple of hours, I think they had their boats ready. They were packed, geared up, ready to go. FEMA, I think, told them late Sunday evening that they were to just listen for orders. They think they had all the assistance that they needed. So there was that slim little chance that they still could go, but it was like it wasn't looking good. So, but then they got that call Monday morning from FEMA itself and telling them to go ahead and stand down. So, because of that, I guess they had all the relief efforts that they needed down there to handle the hurricane and what's left, what's going on right now. Mm-hmm. So they're still here. They're still here in Oklahoma.
Well, as I said, it's good for them, I guess, and not having to make that long journey in all their gear and then get into that soup they call water left. Bad for us that we were hoping to get an on-the-spot report from Mr. Nichols of what he and his crew were seeing there. But sometimes that's the way things work out in live radio.
Yeah, from what a lot of things that we were seeing. And maybe confirm if you saw this too, Gary. I know I saw like one. It was like I-40. Was it I-40 like running through?
Oh, yeah,
that was. It looked like it was a river. It was a river. That was a sight to see there. That caught me off guard because, of course, we drive on I-40 all the time. It goes through the heart of Mvskoke Creek Nation, and but to see that over there in the eastern part of the country, it just amazed me that what this hurricane did.
Yeah, drive south to Henrietta and turn left and keep going until you hit the water.
Yeah.
And of course that would be certainly a case of turn around, don't drown.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen weather reports kind of at first were talking about the intensity of this storm, like it might be one of the biggest hurricanes to hammer the coast in decades. But I guess they've been kind of ramping it down somewhat, or lowering their rating and saying that, well, maybe most of the storm is gone, but there's still some rain there, and there's definitely a lot of flooding. So I guess our team was prepared to go out and assist with that.
Yeah, exactly. They were ready to go. They were ready to move at a moment's notice. Whenever they had that green light to go, they were gone. They were going to be gone. They were packed.
Oh,
and
God.
It was like, it was not only like, they kept taking it down, that number, like, the category started out at category 3,
Mm-hmm.
It was category 2, and then when it hit inland, it was category 1. I think what surprised majority of the meteorologists from what I was watching was that hurricane was, how it usually shifts. It usually goes like north and everything. It stayed there. It stayed in that state for quite a bit of time. So, I mean, that was just that was the amazing part right there. That's what they're saying, that it was just really the hurricane was just going to be just staying there for a while. It wasn't going to be moving anywhere. It just wanted to stay in North Carolina. It wanted to be a Tar Heel or a Blue Devil.
Maybe a little bit of the Volunteers.
Yeah.
It's got to be amazing to be caught in the situation, first of all, but then having to go in there and get those folks out.
Oh, man, yeah.
You see TV footage of these crews taking boats into neighborhoods and getting those elderly people out and little kids, even pets.
Yes, pets. There's a lot of pets that were. I mean, I'm a huge pet lover. I have a cat at home and everything, but just seeing them caged up. I mean, it's like, I don't know what these owners were thinking, but it's just like just seeing that. It was just a horrible sight to see right there.
Yeah,
I mean, but I mean, I'm glad these people were there to see them and be able to rescue them, along with the other people that were stranded at that time.
Well, now you've done some work with those crews, and you are a certified.
I'm an open dive. Yes, open dive.
What does that mean?
It's I guess whenever. I learned the basic of the basics. I was, with I was going to be on that dive team and had to get scuba dive certified. Had to put on that tank on the back and breathe through that. So I had to, learn how to do that, learn how to be able to swim underwater, be able to really kick your legs. So it was that. But there's a lot of levels that a lot of these divers have to train for and be certified for, and like our emergency management manager James Nichols and a few of the other guys that are still on the team, they become that. They're certified. They're swift rescue, swift rescue certified, and it's on the tip of my tongue, and I cannot remember any other certifications. I was told it, and of course, my mind goes blank. But, swift rescue, I mean, whenever we had that, I'm going to say it's been quite a while back, but we had the big flooding in Henrietta and Newark.
Right.
Our teams got sent out. This was before I became certified, open dive certified, but our teams got sent out, and a couple of the guys that were on Light Horse, they're swift rescue, and they were involved in, making sure that they were in the relief efforts and trying to get everybody, that was stranded. To safety.
When I hear the term swift rescue, it's like I envision like creeks or rivers where it's just swollen so bad and the water's just whistling by you at 3 or 4 times its normal rate. And if you step into it, you're gone.
You're pretty much, you're exactly right.
Or even in cities, where kids... some people might get caught in these drainage canals.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we've had reports of fatalities there. Even up in, was it Claremore? One of the team up there, unfortunately, got caught in an attempt to save other people. Was taught. Well, as you say, there's several levels. So
yes.
I presume there's kind of a mild level and then intense and then.
Yeah, I remember whenever I was getting certified. The guys that, asked me to go be on this team, of course, it was Mr. Nichols. Mm-hmm. But, they were getting certified. They were doing something else. And I remember watching them whenever I got to take a break with my tank. They had their, wetsuit on, but they didn't have no tanks. Mm-hmm. So they were, they were teaching, I guess, how to bring a body back, or bring, somebody who was, possibly near drowning, bring them back, in case if they didn't have that tank on or anything like that. It was amazing watching them work and train to get ready for these situations.
Did you take a shot at it yourself?
At that part, no, I didn't. I was actually too tired from after I got done with my I think I was done with one exercise, and they told us that we could take a break. And when we were taking a break, that's when all the other guys, that's when they were doing it. So it was, it was at Lake Ten Killer at that time. So it was very, very informative. I mean, it was something to, if I, continue with this, that would be something I would be getting into. And it was really, really awesome to watch what these guys do.
Turning in some pretty amazing first-hand reports there.
Yeah. It was what these guys do to get ready to prepare. I mean, and I'm just not talking about our emergency management, but all the other dive teams. I mean, just what they do to prepare for situations like these. I mean, and they have to keep refreshed.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. I mean, you just never know. It might not happen, and then numerous cases might happen. I mean, you just got to be ready.
And I would presume that would include being physically fit.
Very physically fit. These guys, the guys that I was watching, they're fit. They were ready to go. Of course, I mean, the water is going to exhaust you regardless. But they had to be, they would take that quick break. They were back at it. At the training. They took quicker breaks than we did, and they were a lot shorter breaks because they had to get them out there and get them ready to go. Yeah,
you can't get in the middle of something like that and then all of a sudden gas out because...
Exactly. Something I would do.
Well, this old guy is going to stand on the riverbank and watch you guys.
Point out what's going on, like point you to where you need to be at.
Yeah, I would have presumed there's kind of a lot of mental training going that accompanies the physical.
At the first of it, whenever I was in the training, we had the goggles on, and our goggles, covered our noses, and there was like one exercise we had to let that water in to our goggles, inside our goggles, and we had to hold our hold like certain part, and if we like exhale through our nose, it's going to let the water out a certain way. Well, we had to do that, and I think there was a few people that they just could not do that. They could not get over that mentality that they thought that. I mean, and it's tough. It's not. That was not easy at all. And we were above we were in a pool at that time doing that.
Oh, God,
so imagine being in the lake.
Illinois River or something like that.
Exactly.
Canadian.
Yes. And so we were doing that, and we had those are one of the first exercises, and a couple of the guys, that. Not the group that I was with, but a couple of guys that that joined, they could not get that. They could not get past that. So I mean, and I guess the dive part is just not for everybody.
Yeah, I guess at that point, if they can't do that, what is the term, washout? Well, I guess that's pretty critical, because if you get in a situation where someone is in need of help and is scared to death, they're likely perhaps to be thrashing around and put you in that situation.
Yeah, they are. They're trying to like rescue themselves somehow, and I mean, you want them. I mean, of course, whenever you're going to grab that person, I mean, they're going to be flailing. They're going to be going all over the place. They're trying to grab anything at all while you're trying to bring them to safety. So they might push you underwater. You just never know. Yeah, I mean. And, that's what a lot of the guys who were advanced, that's what they had to go through. They had to go through those situations and reenact them.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just seeing all them guys do that, they were, like, getting pushed underwater, and they were coming back up, trying to take that big breath, before, and still bring that person to safety. Yeah. That was in training. Real life is probably, 10, 50 times worse.
Oh, geez. Yeah. From your experience, about how many members are on a team like that?
From what I know, we were always told that I think if we were ever to be called out, it just all depends. It was like a case by case. Oh, okay. So it all. I know. I think whenever I was there, I think there was like 3 or 4 that was already certified, and they were moving up the ranks, and then whenever there's a few other light horse, at least 5 or 6 that were going to be certified, and a couple of other emergency management. So at that time there was about 8. There was about 8 that was open dive. So so far I'm still, of course, open dive, not unless my it expired or ran out or something. But those guys continue training, so they might have moved up. They might have moved up since then, and they might have recruited more since I've done that. That's been about, I'm gonna say, for 3 or 4 years. So
From what Mr. Nichols told me, they're actually in training today, and that's why they couldn't schedule us. Couldn't be here to join us. We miss you, sir. It was an interesting discussion we had planned.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. But, you know, I mean, like I said, I mean, for situations like this, you never know. I mean, even though the waters are receding and stuff, and it's kind of like ending, they still might be called out, you know. Even though they're like, you know, they told them to stand down right now. You never know. Some organization might leave, but then they just can't return around and come back. They might be ready to go, you know. So you just never know. I know they're ready to. They're still packed just in case.
Well, you know, it's good to see that they've got that degree of readiness and are able to respond that fast. Have you ever had a chance to kind of shoot the breeze with some of these guys and figure out why they want to do this?
I spoke to a few of them, and matter of fact, when I was there, and you know, I was asking, you know, what made them want to do this, and it was I remember that one of them always told me that it's not just land that you have to rescue people. You know, you got to go into the oil sometimes. I mean, you got to go into the water to do it. I mean, and it wasn't just like rescuing. I mean, these guys were there just in case if something happened to where maybe if drugs were thrown in the water, they had to retrieve it. You know, they had to retrieve that, or God forbid, a body. I mean, it's things like that. It's not just rescue situations. It's search and rescue. You know, I mean, these guys were ready for it. So, and that's what it was for. I mean, that always stuck with me was he always told me that all these dangers that we go through just doesn't happen on land.
Well, you know, you mentioned the recovery there, and I had instantly visions of you being in really murky water, and all of a sudden you stick your hand out and it's in somebody's face. Rather grisly thought, but you know, I guess this is essentially what we're doing.
It happens, it can happen. That's the downfall of it. And you know, there was we were searching for a person one time, and it was in the evening following to the night, and we didn't find her throughout the night, you know, so, and, you know, they told us that we could go home at a certain time. I think it was like 1 or 2 that morning. And then we would like follow it and come back, you know, the next day and do our search efforts. I had it in my mind, you know, we're not searching for a person anymore. We're searching for a body now. I didn't think that she was going to be alive. And I'm glad she proved me wrong. These guys found her alive, and we did a quick,
wonderful.
We did a quick search and saw where she was at, and the lady had Alzheimer's and dementia, and so that kind of like played. But yeah, throughout that whole night, she was just by the waters, but she never went in. She never went into the waters, and so that was amazing to know that, you know, she just stayed by the waters that whole night, and she didn't think she was lost or anything like that. But it was just, I had that in my mind. But I'm just glad that it didn't end that way. So these guys are very they're professional at what they do.
You know, while we're kind of talking about some of the dangers involved, is there any discussions or presentations on that subject? I mean, besides, you know, the obvious threat of rushing water and being trapped under a log or something, you know, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not getting in there if I know there are a bunch of water moccasins or, you know, alligators in there. Did they ever kind of hit on those subjects?
You know, usually whenever on big things like that, they probably have like that. They have their where they're going to go to that morning. Like there's certain sections of these areas that you're going to be tackling, kind of like what people who try to take out the fire, try to combat like firefighting, like lava. I mean, they kind of do that. They say, hey, you're going to go to this section A, section B, or, you know, zones or anything like that. I think it's the same in this similar situation, because whenever we were there that first time, they wanted us to cover this certain area. They wanted to cover this certain area, and they were saying, well, it might be cool enough. You might not, see anything, but just be on the alert.
Mm-hmm.
Just be on the alert for that happen, because it was that following day. Matter of fact, I was walking with James Nichols to go find this lady, or where they saw her at, and we were going to go over there to just see if she's still there. He stepped over a copperhead. Yeah, and I mean, so you brought that up. It just reminded me of that, and he pointed out quickly. It was copperhead, and I had to jump over, and that caught me off guard. I'm glad it was cold enough that morning. He was not moving.
Right, but you were.
But I was. Yeah.
What was your vertical leap there?
I probably could have matched Michael Jordan that day. I mean, I remember James was laughing about it. I mean, he was he goes, "I thought I said it quick enough." I go, "You did. It was just my reaction. I look like one of those cartoon characters that jumped in the air."
Were your shoes still on the ground?
They were still there. They were with me.
Oh my gosh! Well, that's amazing. And I understand this has absolutely nothing to do with the subject, but it's a big season for snakes here in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Yeah, for mild winter, I guess. I heard a lady up around Manford or something like that. She had a nest of copperheads under her shed, and she had killed 15 of them.
Where my mom lived, one of them came right up to the porch. I guess it was it was actually too hot for him, so he moved to the porch to try and find some shade himself.
Yeah.
It was weird to see, but he was up there just coiled up and just resting on our porch. So and I know what that lady is going through. I mean, we didn't see a nest, but we were always told, like, whenever you see one snake, chances are there's another one not that far away.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember just doing a search around the house and had a shovel ready to go, just in case if I needed to figure out a way to attack it. That's what I was worried about. But I didn't see another one, but I saw that one, and so I know a lot of others have seen like sightings around their house. Oh
yeah, my brother. I was just out at his place, and he said they found a couple of skins in his garage where they have their furniture workshop.
Oh goodness!
He says, "No, you got to be careful when you reach for something or you step somewhere."
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'd keep my little 410 handy.
Yes.
Well, anyway, this has nothing to do with our subject, and we're kind of wandering off. Now, has there been any other further information from these crews about what they're doing or kind of gear they're packing or anything else like that?
I know with the dive rescue team, they had their oxygen tanks were ready. They were full. They was ready to go. Also with, they just had like they packed their clothes ready, and it was just like their basic necessities. And I mean, I know the boats were going, and they all had all their first aid kits.
Yeah.
Those are all ready. Those are all geared. Those are all packed up. I know with those guys, they had all those ready, and I know they probably rechecked, checked again, and even before they left, they probably checked one more time just to make sure everything is set. They're good to go, so they wouldn't have to try and find something else while they were there, because those supplies, they're going to be going lower and lower and lower by the day.
Yeah, and a lot of that gear is kind of specialized.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can run to Walmart and grab another emergency air mask or something like that. Well, I guess we're going to be keeping our ears open in case our crew does get dispatched to the East Coast, and see what they're doing there. We're going to probably take a short break here, and we'll be back with the second portion of our program. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew.
Red Stick Gallery in Okmulgee, Oklahoma features items handmade or designed by Mvskoke Creek enrolled citizens from all over. Owned by the Mvskoke Creek Nation, the gallery proudly sells ribbon skirts and vests, Southeastern designed clothing, jewelry, prints, and many other items. For more information, visit www.creeknationgiftshop.com. Red Stick Gallery, located 105 South Grand Avenue in historic downtown Okmulgee.
We're back here on Mvskoke Radio. Let me see if we've got everything working. We're speaking on the line with Shelby Rowe. Shelby, are you with us? Hold on, let me punch the right buttons here. Gosh. Shelby, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. I didn't completely lose you and fumble these buttons here. We're sitting here with Darren, and he's going to take over most of this interview, but don't be too surprised if I kind of jump in with a few questions myself.
Shelby, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, Darren?
Doing okay. Getting over a little, or trying to get over a little summer cold, but I think it's in its starting right now, so we'll see how this affects me. So if you hear my voice get scratchy, I apologize.
Okay, I think there's something going around. Yeah.
Oh man, I hope not. So, but no, I was wanting to bring up about tell our audience about Miss Shelby Rowe. She is a suicide prevention program manager for the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Where I got to meet her at was at our Mvskoke Creek Nation Department of Health. It was their Hope Conference. Miss Rowe was a keynote speaker and an amazing person to talk to, an amazing person to listen to. And so we're going ahead and get this going. So Shelby, I know I told a little bit about you. Could you tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, please?
Yes. So I'm Shelby. You covered my professional title.
Mm-hmm.
I also am a proud citizen of the Chickasaw Nation, and was very honored to be selected in 2016 by my tribe as the Chickasaw Nation Dynamic Woman of the Year. I worked in public health for over 20 years and in suicide for over 10 years in suicide prevention. And I'm also a suicide attempt survivor. And I really enjoy opportunities like at the Hope Conference where I met you, sharing my story, because I do believe that stories of recovery are that antidote to stigma. There are many people like me who have survived and we're not hearing their stories. And so if by sharing my story, I can help someone else find the courage to share theirs, it helps remove that stigma and shame, which we need to heal individually and as a community.
Could you tell our audience about, that story about, what happened, what the factors that might have led up to it, and the aftermath of after that attempt, please?
Sure, I will. I will be really brief, but just let me know if there's anything you want me to expand upon.
Thank you.
For me personally, one of my biggest risk factors is I have PTSD. I was diagnosed with PTSD when I was 19, following a series of pretty significant traumas in my life. The most noteworthy, the biggest trauma of that would be the accidental shooting death of my first husband. And I was, had an 18-month-old and a 6-week-old baby. And I was fresh out of a domestic violence shelter where I had lived for 2 weeks while I was 9 months pregnant. So I had a lot of trauma at that point, was diagnosed with PTSD, and I went to a lot of counseling and really felt like I was better, that I was all better, that I was cured, which wasn't true. I was not cured. And I had moved. I went on to college and had built my life and, worked hard to have all those things you're supposed to have. And it was years later, it was 18 years later, I went through a divorce, and there were sudden things about the divorce that kind of triggered in my brain the PTSD, the loss of my first husband. And it put me in a really unhealthy place. And at that point, even though I was working in suicide prevention at the time, I served on the board of the Arkansas chapter for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I was the executive director for the Arkansas Crisis Center, and we had the statewide suicide hotline. I did a lot of work with first responders, and so I thought, well, I'm immune. I understand this is happening, but that could never happen to me. I could never be at risk for suicide. And I was wrong. And I didn't tell people in my life, my support system, my friends that I had made. They didn't really know about my past traumas. They didn't know about my PTSD. And so all they knew was how, I was responding, and that I couldn't get everything back together. It just felt like I was irreparably broken. And I just didn't have the vocabulary to tell them about my past traumas. And I didn't talk about my past PTSD like I should have. So even though I was trying to reach out and get help, I wasn't doing a very good job of it. Mm-hmm. And my friends and family didn't really know how to help me. And that went on for a couple months. At one point, I did take myself to a hospital, and so I didn't feel like I could keep myself safe by myself anymore. And I took myself to the hospital, which was really humbling and humiliating, but I knew in my heart I wasn't safe. And sometimes you've got to do that. When you're in a life-threatening health crisis, you've got to take care of yourself. So I took myself to the hospital, but there, the psychiatrist that I had, they had a student psychiatrist that he had asked if I'd ever been diagnosed with a mental health condition, and I told him that I had PTSD. And why do you have PTSD? And he doubted my diagnosis. So then I started to doubt my diagnosis. Well, maybe I don't have PTSD. Like maybe I'm just broken. Maybe there's no hope for me. And so I stayed for a week, and I did all the activities and stuff that they asked me to do. And I left not better with a bill, and my family and friends wanted me to be magically better, and I wanted to be magically better, but I wasn't. And so that kind of the hopelessness, and just was really angry with myself, the self-rage of why can't you just be normal? Why can't all of this go away? And I made an attempt on my life.
Shelby, before we get to that, and forgive me for interrupting, but
no, go right.
You mentioned there a step in the process where you had to admit some things to yourself. And I've noticed in the people I've talked to on different topics and issues, that's a critical part of the process is I guess, admitting that you're broken, or that you're wrong, or that your own pride might prevent you from going out and seeking help, no matter what it might be. Now, in your case, was it something there that you had to deal with, is like, okay, I am blank blank, I need help. Did that figure in for you?
Well, I mean, I think that we all, in some ways, that no one wants to admit that they need help for anything. We don't want to admit we need help lifting heavy boxes. We like to think we can handle things on our own. And I find a lot with mental health, but also with physical health. We all know that person that, waits 2 weeks to go to the doctor when they could have gone right away, for something, because they're like, oh, I can handle it. And so it is something with everything, but especially I see with mental health, because we don't see it. We can't see what's happening inside our brain. And so we think, oh, it'll be okay. So it is humbling, especially to go like, oh, I'm not okay. I recently had a conversation with a family member, and someone that has worn glasses every day since they were 7 years old because they've got terrible vision, and they will happily wear their glasses because they know it helps them see better.
Right. Now that
but they refuse to take medicine for their anxiety.
Oh.
They're like, oh no, I don't need it, and you're like, it's just like your glasses. Like,
yeah. You're talking. You're speaking with someone who's worn them since he was 7. Now,
right? Oh yeah, and you go like, you just need it. And I wish we were at that place in our country that people would go like, oh, well, my brain doesn't make this chemical if I take this medicine. Like, it's no shame. Like, there's no shame in needing glasses.
Right.
It's great that they exist, and it's great. But yeah, I mean, we're still working that way with culture. But yeah, admitting that we need help, admitting that we're not okay, is never easy.
Yeah,
it wasn't
having
for me.
Having to deal with the comments about four eyes and this kind of thing. Now, before I interrupted you, you were getting to a critical part of your story about making an attempt on your own life there. I'd like you to return to that, and maybe you can answer this question for us: is like, what compelled you to think this was the solution that you needed?
That's a deep question. I will do my best to answer it. But, for me, for months, and I will say, the brain doesn't know the difference between physical pain and psychological pain. And so it doesn't matter how smart you are, how capable you are, when our bodies are in a lot of pain, our brains don't work as well. It's not that you're not smart. It's not that you don't have coping skills. None of us are capable of those really deep thought processes when we're in a lot of pain. And I think that we overlook that impact, of pain. No one expects someone with a broken leg, the bone poking out of the skin, to be able to give them directions to their house and phone number and info. Everyone knows, like, they're in too much pain to do that. But when someone's in deep psychological pain, we seem to forget that they're in a lot of pain too. That it's not that they don't have those skills, they just can't access them because they're in too much pain. And so for me, for months in my head, and I was in a lot of pain and really overwhelming. For those who don't have PTSD and haven't experienced it, the time perspective that you get, that I get, you have an experience and time goes by and you can look back and reflect on it and see it differently. But when I have a PTSD episode, it's like there's no time past. It's like all of those past traumas just happened that day at the same time. And every new trauma just adds on top of that level. Like, my brain doesn't let me process traumatic events one at a time. When something happens, it just kind of dumps all of that fresh. And so sorting it all out and dealing with all those emotions is exhausting. And trying to go through life pretending like everything's okay while that was happening was exhausting for me. And in my brain, I kept like yelling at myself, like going like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't do this. I can't live like this anymore. And, sadly that it took a suicide. It was like, when I can't do this anymore. And so it was that I can't live through this. I cannot survive this. Was that thought process. And it's like seeing my friends and family who were scared and worried for me in that state, all I was seeing was I am causing them to be upset needlessly. If I wasn't here, they would not have to worry about me anymore. That I'm not worth them worrying. I know that there's a myth and a strong belief, that suicide is selfish. Through my professional career, I have talked to countless individuals who are acutely suicidal and countless individuals who survived a suicide attempt. And I've never met one that did it because they wanted to hurt other people. In their mind and that warped logic, I thought that everyone would be better off without you being there. And so it's a very dark, very painful place to be. It makes me, I'm sitting on the couch at my son and daughter-in-law's house right now in Tulsa, feeling sad about that because it's a horrible place to be. Because, after my attempt, it's like this voice in my head that had been saying, I can't live like this anymore, was saying, so don't. Well, you're right. you can't live like this anymore. Like, we've been telling you this for months. Live a different way. Like, don't live like this anymore. Live a different way. And just being able, having my pain level alleviated. So, like, after my attempt, my sister and my dad came to visit me, and we didn't talk about my attempt. We just talked about life. We talked about other things, stories, and they made me feel loved. Mm-hmm. And that love and support was enough to kind of, lighten up that pain level enough that I could really see clearly. And I was like, oh, I don't have to live this way anymore.
So Shelby,
you're right. This is an awful way to live. Let's live a different way.
Yeah. So Shelby, this is Darren again.
Yeah.
Do you visit from your relatives right there? Do you consider that the first step towards that healing process that we spoke about at that earlier when we did an interview? Was that your first step towards healing or recovery?
I think it was. I think so, because having them come at the time, I lived in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and they drove over 2 hours to come and spend the day with me and talk, and just being there really helped. It helped to comfort me and helped me to feel loved and supported, and just helped me to see more clearly than I had for a while. I think sometimes that we spend too much time trying to talk people into being better instead of just comforting them through the pain. If you comfort them through the pain, like, they already want to feel better. They're mad at themselves for not feeling better. And just comfort them through that, we can go a long ways, And I had, after my dad left, and it is my dad's mom, who's Chickasaw, and I had helped her in my early 20s, helped her do some genealogy and learn to help her get reconnected with our tribe, because her parents had divorced when she was a child. Her dad was Chickasaw, her mom wasn't, and the mom moved with her children and with her parents, who were European immigrants. And so my grandmother was raised to not be proud, to be embarrassed and ashamed of being a mixed blood, as they called it then. And so it took time as she got older to be like, no, like, this is who I am. I'm proud of who I am, and I want to connect. And so being able to help her with that process was healing for me, and learning about my ancestors and learning about my grandmothers and learning my family history helped. And I really do feel that, after my family left and I went in the bathroom and kind of looked at myself in the mirror, and I probably hadn't really looked at myself in a month, because I hated myself at that moment. I didn't want to see myself. I didn't want to spend time with myself. And I just really feel like, that they came and visited me and talked to me. And so live a different way. Like, we've been telling you, you can't live on this path anymore. Like, just stop going in that direction. Go a different direction.
Wow.
But feeling loved and connected. And so, so then spending a lot of time after that trying to do things to honor my ancestors. They fought really hard just so I would have a chance to survive and exist. And so I want to fulfill all of my dreams and all of theirs too.
When you said that you went to the bathroom and you said you haven't looked at yourself in a month because of that, this time, what did you see when you looked in the mirror? What did, was it the new Shelby Rowe? Was it a new face? What did you see?
Yeah, I saw, I'm really kind. I think for other people who know me, it's hard for them to think that I didn't have sympathy for myself, because I'm a really caring person. My whole career is built around helping others, and to just have no sympathy for myself. And so I saw myself is someone hurting and deserving of love, and kind of stopped being so hard on myself and so mad at myself for not being okay. And I just, I saw and had that connection of like, this is who I am, that I'm not just me, but I am going to be the ancestor of my children's children,
Mm-hmm.
and my ancestors. That we all play a role. I think it was a couple years ago. It was at the first Hope Conference. The Mvskoke Creek Nation, your chief medical officer, Dr. Beats, had said, we were talking about, when we lose tribal members to suicides, and we don't just lose them, we lose all of the ancestors who came before them and all of the descendants that would come after them. That we, for each person we lose. And it's hard to explain, but I think that kind of, like, I saw my role as being way bigger than my personal life. And I didn't need to live just for me. It was like I needed to live, for all those that came before me and all those that came after. And I know it sounds hokey and sounds weird, but that really, it was this strange awakening. And then in the middle of the night, I went to bed feeling so loved and connected, and got up in the morning super early. It was like, I've got to drive to Ada, which was, of course, and I know nobody in
Mm-hmm.
Ada, but like I just felt this compelling urge that I needed to be closer to my people. Like if I could just get closer to my people, that I would be better.
Okay. Now it's, been about almost a decade since that happened.
Yeah.
How do you, it's such a long time. It's such a long time that happened, but how do you help others now, And then another question, to bring into that, when you do the help others who, may have done these attempts on their lives, to get them to open up, and you're sharing to us what happened. While you're talking to them, does those memories of that past come up, and do you look at it differently now?
Man, yes, I do. I do look at it differently. But yeah, so over the past, it's been 8 years, around 8 years since my attempt in 2010. I made some pretty significant changes in my life to be well. Because then I thought, okay, well, what needs to change? That anything was on the table. So at that point, it's like, well, anything that's better than death is a good option. Mm. So I made a lot of changes. I changed jobs. I moved. I've done other things, and have gotten much better at taking care of myself, which makes me better at helping others. As I said at the time of my attempt, I was already working in suicide prevention. I stayed in the field because I love it. I'm passionate about it, and I think I'm good at it. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed in the field, but I shifted. I no longer do crisis intervention because I found that I wasn't good at taking care of myself when I was, in the trenches with others. I wasn't letting myself be off work. With my work at the time at the crisis center, I was literally on call 24 hours a day. And so I needed to stop doing that. So wow. My work shifted to more public health, which I enjoy. And, now I have the opportunity. I've worked at the state level in Arkansas. I worked at the national level for a large nonprofit organization and lived in New York City for a couple of years. I'm working with them, helping develop and implement education programs, and got to come back home to Oklahoma, be closer to my family and everything in 2017. And I worked for the state of Oklahoma. and I get to shape our programs. I get to select what the state strategy for suicide prevention is, what curriculums we're going to take into communities, what communities we work with, what policies and procedures need to happen to build that safety net. So I'm still working at helping people at risk, but I am working to create a safer system for them to be in instead of being on the front line.
What could you say? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
Oh, yeah. So when you go to a doctor's office and they have you, at the same page you're filling out, did any of your ancestors, have any of your relatives had cancer or heart disease, and they're asking you your symptoms, they also ask about depression and suicide, and I get to play a role in that, of making sure that our state, that we're putting mental health on the same level as physical health, because our brains are part of our bodies, and we need to stop separating them so that we can get the brain health care that we deserve.
The one thing, one of the things that we that the Hope Conference where I met you at was speaking about was spreading the awareness, getting this out to, every single person possible. What could you say to our listeners, how could they, come up to somebody? How could they, just, speak to someone who may be dealing with, some of these trials in their life, and, they think that suicide could be an option, What could you say to our listeners who might have that person around in their house or in their neighborhood? How could they approach that person, and especially approach that topic?
Yeah, no, we definitely, and thanks for the opportunity to answer that question. That's a good question. Is first, I would say first and foremost, to step back, that your loved one is someone who's they're in a lot of emotional pain. If they're at a place where they're feeling that suicide is their only option or is a viable option, means that there's a lot of pain, because survival instinct is the strongest drive on the planet. And the good news is you don't have to be an expert in suicide to be able to help your loved ones stay safe. Individuals who are suicidal as a whole tend to have three things in common. And this is the watered-down version. If someone wants to look up Dr. Thomas Joyner, he has his interpersonal theory of suicidality has been around for a couple of years. It's been researched. No one has been able to disprove it, and I think it's the best theory we have. But what he says is that the three things we'll have in common is that they feel like they don't belong. They feel very disconnected. And many of us, when we go through transition, there are periods that we're not connected. If it's changing of a job, if it's relationship, sometimes it's losing our home. That part of who we are, that we lose that, leaves us feeling disconnected. So the faster we can get reconnected, the safer we will be. So the disconnected also is feeling like a burden, feeling like I play no purposeful role in my community and my family, that I am a burden. I don't provide anything useful. And then the third would be access to lethal means, being in unsafe environments. And so in prevention, if we're worried about someone, there are things that we can do to help in all three of those areas that is going to keep them safe.
Shelby,
it's not going to hurt them if they're not thinking about suicide. We can invite them to go fishing with us, invite them to go to lunch with us. If you've got a friend with a broken leg, you might offer to mow their yard. If you've got a friend who's really depressed, just going through a divorce, there's something to go like, hey, I'm doing this can I come by and do some tours for you? Or I'm going to the laundromat. Can I take your laundry with mine? Help them out, and then give them opportunities to be helpful.
Now, Shelby, let me ask you, in the last couple of minutes we have here, if there were someone listening to our program, perhaps, that is contemplating these kinds of things, what would you say to them? What kinds of things would be important to communicate to them if, say, they were listening to this show right now?
So the first thing I would do is say, I am so sorry that you're in so much pain. As hard as it is believed that there is help out there. There are people that care about you that you may not even know. There are people that are there to help support you, and I would strongly encourage them to go to the doctor. If this is a life-threatening health condition, the Mvskoke Creek Nation, the health system is rapidly expanding and growing the behavioral health services, and maybe that person years ago went for counseling or something and didn't get good help or took medication and it made them feel weird. I would say go back. Like, treatment models have gotten so much better, and our tribal communities in Oklahoma are really stepping up. I'm really encouraged with how well all of our major tribal communities and even IHS of really stepping up and strengthening and improving their behavioral health services.
Okay.
So to go get help, that help is available.
Excuse me.
And to go before it's life-threatening.
Right now.
Don't wait until it's life-threatening.
We have to go before we're off the air here. Now, if there is a single phone number that you wanted to share, what
Absolutely.
would it be real quickly?
It would be 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-TALK. Or you can text the crisis text line at 7741.
Okay.
And get help 24 hours a day.
All right.
Thank you so much, Shelby, and we hope you enjoyed the rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you. You too.
We appreciate having you with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, Meadow. All right. Gosh, that was hard to do.
Great story, though.
Oh, isn't it? And we hope that if anyone finds themselves in this position, that they admit it to themselves, perhaps, and go out and seek help.
Yeah, with that crisis text line, it's 741-741. Text CREEK to that if you need any help on that one.
Right, and we hope that someday there might be an end to this kind of story. All right, well, you've been listening to Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew. We appreciate you being with us today, and I guess it's time for us to head out of here.
Get out of here.
Okay.